delighted to be joined today by Dan Hughes, who's director at Kinrara Consulting. So Dan, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Perhaps you can just tell us a bit about yourself, your background and any career highlights to date.
Yeah, sure. So as you say, I'm director of Kinrara Consulting, which is part of the Goodwood Group. The Goodwood Estate, based down in the south of England, West Sussex, is a 300-year-old country estate. And in the last 25 years or so, we've become world-renowned for largely our motorsport events, the Festival of Speed and Revival, but also for horse racing. And the glorious Goodwood is our sort of headline horse racing event. But along with that, we've got such diversity across the estate, from golf to aviation, hospitality. We run our own hotel. We've got bars and restaurants. We've got tens of thousands of people in our membership operation. So it's a significant business and very diverse. At the other end of the extreme, we've got the typical sort of estate activities of farming and forestry and that sort of thing as well. My role within Kinrara is effectively to use the expertise that we have on the estate to help other people off the estate. So as an example, we're working with various businesses around the world, helping them put together either new facilities, new motorsport facilities, or working with existing facilities to help them build their membership or help them create a commercial model that supports sponsorship and that sort of thing, right the way through to running events and the sort of the day-to-day operational stuff. So very, very interesting work. My history is in the luxury marine sector, so working with a very well-established British brand, running a consultancy business in effectively the marina business. Understanding what a brand's value is to an international market has put me in a very very good place for working with Goodwood with its global reputation. So yeah, very interesting job. Normally, lots of travel thrown in under normal circumstances, but obviously a little bit curtailed at the moment. But we're just finding different ways to do things.
Yeah. So super yachts to super cars has been your.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously, you did touch on there everything that's going on at the moment. So, sort of how, obviously, you at Kinrara must have a forecast for, the next 12 months to 36 months. How has that had to evolve with everything going on surrounding the pandemic?
Well, I think it's fair to say that a lot of the projects that we work on, particularly the new projects, have quite a significant timeline, and so quite often what happens is early on in the project's life cycle, there's a flurry of activity as we help people define what the motor circuit concept might be, for example, what their membership strategy might be, what their commercial strategy might be, and help them put together a feasibility study. And then there's a period of delay or a period of inactivity from our point of view, where the project principals are getting funding, getting planning permissions in place, getting all the necessary permits and approvals and what have you. And then once that happens, then we reactivate our involvement and start building up the detailed design and helping with a bit more sort of structure. So because Kinrara Consulting is relatively new within the Goodwood Group, we're in the early phase of a lot of those conversations with clients. But obviously we're busy building the pipeline to fill that gap in between where those clients are going through that funding process or that planning process. So like I said, previously, normally we would do a fair amount of travel, and nothing beats the face-to-face conversations that you need to have. But we're just finding different ways of working, and not committing ourselves to to those kind of workshop sessions face to face, but doing them virtually instead, which is proving reasonably successful up to now.
So it's the new world, isn't it? Everyone's doing Zoom calls as we are now, and Teams and everything. But I know obviously recently we reported on the ORTO Station project that you're working on in Canada. So perhaps you could tell us a bit more about Kinrara's involvement, and how indeed you came to be working on the project over in, is it Montreal?
It's in Ontario, so north of Toronto, and we had an introduction to the project principles by one of the UK's leading motor circuit design companies called Driven International, who were busy doing the circuit design itself. That's one element of our business that we don't get involved in, is the detailed circuit design. There are some quite significant regulations that you need to go through depending on the FIA grade you want your circuit to operate at, and we have to we allow the experts in their field to go through that kind of design process. But we were very kindly introduced to the project principles because the Oro Station project is geared largely around memberships and sort of guest experiences, and that's something that Goodwood is particularly good at and particularly strong on. And so Driven International introduced us to Oro Station with a view to helping them put together a membership strategy, helping them identify what the tiers of membership might be, building that into a commercial model, looking at how sponsors might activate with those members, as opposed to just having a flag flying on a flagpole. Actually, getting that sort of relationship built between the sponsor and the member, and generally looking at their commercial feasibility model. But we're also looking at the sustainability aspect of the project as well. So we're working with the project principals to build into the design some sustainable options. So, for example, the collection of surface water for irrigation and for planting. We're looking at ways of making sure that that the innovation that's coming through the motorsport world currently with hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles and alternative fuel vehicles are all catered for adequately on this new facility. So early kind of strategy stuff is what we're working on with the project principal at the moment. But our scope with them, provided we do a good enough job in these early phases, is to make sure that we support them along the design and construction process, and make sure that that guest experience is always at the forefront of the decisions that are made. So giving the guest a sense of arrival, planning the internal layouts of the buildings to help with the flow of people, and making sure that members are adequately serviced with their facilities. And then again, as the project moves down its life cycle, helping the owners of the project with operations. So staff recruitment, staff training, bringing them to Goodwood and actually having hands-on day-to-day training on our own circuit will help them help them before they open.
And I should imagine, obviously, not only at Goodwood, but what you're doing with Oro Station and other clients, sort of, I suppose when it comes to the fan experience and operations, everything front end and back end, knowledge sharing must be key for you.
Absolutely. I just don't have the expertise, within this tiny brain of mine. So I rely completely on drawing in the expertise from around the estate. And I'm in a fairly enviable position, I would argue, in that I get to, not the conversation so far has been about the motor circuits and the motorsport, but our estate is so diverse. We have inquiries underway for golf operations. We have inquiries underway for equestrian facilities, forestry, organic farming. So what my role really is to draw individuals out of the business and create a small team who will then deliver the project outside the estate effectively.
And then finally, Dan, sort of obviously we've all had to sort of pivot and evolve of late, but moving forward, how do you see the sort of sports and live entertainment industry having to evolve, as we hopefully get post-pandemic?
It's been, as well as a very worrying time, it's been a very interesting time because we've been forced to think about things in a different way. And traditionally, I think this year would have been the 27th anniversary of the Festival of the Speed, and that is a model that we know works. The layout and activations are always different each year because we want to keep it fresh and exciting. But the broad principle of cars burning rubber up the hill climb is always the same. Now, because we've not been able to run that event, and because we've not been able to run our revival event in September, we were forced into a position where we had to look at things in a different way. And so we've put together effectively a motorsport event that takes the best bits of Festival of Speed and the best bits of Revival, and we are running that physically, but with no audience. And it is geared and designed and planned to be purely for TV and the digital audience. And there were two reasons for that. First of all, we've got a huge fan base who are desperate for content and desperate for the kind of interaction that they normally have with Goodwood. But secondly, our commercial obligations with a lot of our sponsors and partners, we weren't able to satisfy, and this is a mechanism that has enabled us to satisfy those obligations. And actually, it's all about eyeballs for those people, and getting a global audience on TV and through the digital channels, could be argued is a more successful model for them than a live audience, who go to the event and walk away at the end of the day, whereas the digital experience will be there for a lot longer. So yeah, interesting times. We've had to, like I say, really think about ways we can do things differently. Obviously, the shutdown of public events and hospitality and all that sort of thing had a dramatic effect on the Goodwood Estate generally. But we're in pretty good shape, and we're building our resilience to make sure we survive the future.
It's amazing to hear, how everyone's having to pivot, and I know everyone will be, glued to their screens come next month when you have this whole new sort of content for us. And obviously we'll keep in contact about the Oro Station and how that develops as well. So thanks so much for your time, Dan.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. There's lots more coming, but Speed Week is free to air, so anybody can hook in and watch it. It's going to be televised on ITV and ITV4, 16th to the 18th of October.
We shall be tuning in.
Great.
Right. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Katie. Nice to speak to you.